Homeowners claims get denied way more often than people realize. Today, I'm going to break down the 5 most common reasons and how to avoid them. And then what we're going to also talk about is how to avoid this, because this could cost you thousands. The claims that are being denied are most commonly, on average, about $13,962 in claim amounts. That's according to IBIS World, and that's the top 5 mistakes that we're going to talk about, starting with number 1, which is poor maintenance. It's commonly known as wear and tear, which is not covered on a policy in 99% of the cases. If you have rotting wood, if there's termite damage in a tree outside, if there's an old roof, if there's leaks that weren't fixed, if there's mold due to humidity, all of those pieces are things that may be behind a wall that you didn't notice, but you didn't realize the siding on the side of the house had a hole in it as well. If you don't notice it and maintain the home, your insurance in general isn't going to cover those scenarios. If you have an old roof, usually if you have coverage on the roof, there'll be some coverage, but in most cases, if you have a 30-year-old roof, the life expectancy of the roof is already gone. So the amount that insurance is going to cover won't necessarily take care of that. That's where you have an additional coverage, which is matching or full replacement cost of your roof, is something that you want to lean towards in case that can be the scenario of you. Some parts that you can do to avoid those is to get regular inspections. So once a year, have somebody come through and give you a written statement of here's the condition of your home. You can also keep receipts for any repairs that you've done and take photos of the roof if you think that it's in decent condition where they're saying that it's not. A lot of the times they'll approve roofs if they can see them properly being maintained. The second coverage is missing endorsements, which is a specific coverage. An endorsement is an add-on to a policy. A lot of people don't realize that having common issues like sewer and water backup, that's a coverage that you have to add to the policy. Otherwise, there's not a coverage for that. I just had a customer add what's called service line coverage. That'll cover any pipes that are underneath the ground that go to the road from their home. That's not a typical coverage that you have because it's not actually directly in the home and it's not another structure outside the home, so there's no specific coverage to claim. In these cases, these companies have added these service line coverage options that you can do. There's also mold remediation or mold coverage. So if you have something leaking, if your shower was leaking because there was a pinhole and you didn't notice it and it started to mold underneath it and the ceiling, all of those things that start to happen, you can add coverage because it's not a neglect piece. It's just something that isn't noticed. It's not sudden and incidental, which is when the coverage would kick in most cases because it's a slow leak or slow mold creation, then you would add an additional coverage for that. Equipment breakdown is typically not covered unless there's a package that comes with it. So if your dishwasher broke down, if your fridge broke down, if any of that happened, that's kind of like an extended warranty on your devices. And that's an option. You can add that to your policy. Very common to have happen. Whether it's worth it or not to carry it, it's really a flip of a coin for some people because it does have a cost to it. It can be filing a claim, and you may not want that on your insurance either way. The third, which is not covered at all, is flood insurance. So if you have any type of flood, it doesn't necessarily have to be what you'd imagine where there's a whole flood and your house gets swiped away. It can be water coming into the windows. The windows seal, they crack over time, and if you're not maintaining that, which I need to do now that I just thought about that on my house, if you don't have that, water will come in. That's considered flood anytime the water's coming into the house. It's water backup if the water's trying to leave the house. So the foundation, if the water level rises higher than your foundation, you're going to have water coming through the cracks in your cement, and that's just going to flood the home. You're not going to have additional coverage unless you purchase a flood policy. Number 4 is a debatable piece. A lot of us don't tell people that we've improved our home. We don't want our insurance to go up. We don't want our taxes to go up, and we don't want them to know that we redid the kitchen, we redid the bathroom. But if you don't advise that, the rebuild cost of your home isn't done correctly. So when your agent sits down and says, okay, what type of flooring do you have? Do you have paint on the walls, or is it wallpaper? What kind of do you have carpet? Do you have hardwoods? All those things build up what's called a replacement cost estimate. And that's the estimate of what it would cost to rebuild your home to like material. If you had the old countertops and you put new granite in, they're not going to know that you have that upgrade. In most cases, you're going to have some extra coverage in case that is an update that wasn't notified. But I'll be honest with you, they could technically deny the claim, or at least deny the extra improvement or betterment, as they call it, that you improved the home. And the fifth one is your timing. If you're not filing a claim right away, you should talk to your agent first and make sure it's worth filing. check your deductible, make sure the coverage is on the policy, all of the things that you would expect to do, I run through the agent first. If you're calling the 1-800-CLAIMS number, it doesn't matter what you did, you just put the claim on file. Now that they're aware of it, it usually counts against you, even if you don't end up paying the claim. If it was a $1,500 deductible, $1,500 repair, a claim goes through for $0 because that agent filed the claim on your behalf. So be careful when you're doing those claims. Just make sure that the agent has your best interest at mind so that you don't make the mistake of doing something like that. But getting photos. The first thing is to shut off the problem, fix the issue, stop the fire, stop the water coming in. If you don't go shut off the main valve and know where that is, you've got to figure that out. Your responsibility as the homeowner is to stop or do everything you can to prevent future damage. If that's not the case and they can show proof that you didn't shut off the water line or you didn't actually call the fire department to put out the fire, then you could be held responsible for any future damage from the initial claim. I almost think that everybody should know this, but there's probably a handful of us that just forget claims are happening. We're not sure what to do. All of the nerves are kicking in. Take photos. Take photos of anything that you have now so that you can take any valuable photos. Take photos of what happens after so you can document the process for yourself, but also you can show proof of here's what I used to have in the house, here's what I have now, or here's what needs to be replaced. If you have a way to collect receipts, then you have receipts. Most of the time it's on a credit or debit card, so you usually can prove the value or the purchase of an item if you've had that. But then you got to keep in mind, what are people complaining about? Okay, but don't take my word for it. I actually have some complaints here that are common from home insurance. Is a lot of people said, I thought I had full coverage. They were missing the endorsements. Some other people said, I thought it said maintenance, which is wear and tear. That's just not covered. There's no policy that covers it ever, anywhere, unless no, there's just none I know of. I can't think of one. So just know that wear and tear is something that you have to maintain and fix. Well, nobody told me I needed flood insurance. Honestly, flood insurance, you will know if you're buying the house and it's in a flood zone, they're going to require you to have flood insurance. If you're concerned about it, easiest way to think of cost is usually double the price of your home policy or close to. Talk to an agent to find out for sure. It can be lower, it can be higher. There's obviously different contents you can add and different endorsements and stuff like that for the flood. But in general, you're going to have a little bit higher cost if that's the case. Oh, I didn't know I had to prove ownership. You have to have insurability in the home. So if you're not listed on the home as an owner, you're not allowed to insure it. You have to have a reason for being. Now, if you're purchasing a home, it's insurable interest, which means you're planning on purchasing the home. That's something that they typically expect soon, 90 days, whatever the legal amount is in your state. But if you're waiting 5 years and you're doing a rent to own, it's a different scenario. So make sure that you show ownership. Otherwise, they might not pay you at all because you're not the person that they would typically pay. Again, the easiest way to find out whether a company should cover your claim or is going to cover it, if it's sudden and incidental, that's usually the key factor. If a pipe bursts and that's sudden and incidental, the water's not trying to go in or out. It might be, but it's something that happened instantly. That's going to be typically on your dwelling A, your home coverage. A common reason they'll deny a claim is if you misunderstood the exclusion. They're written there. You signed the paper. You have to understand what's on that policy. Lack of documentation. If that's easy denial for a lawyer or for anyone that you're trying to fight a claim for, is if you haven't documented either repairs to the home or valuable items that you've purchased. Most of the time they have an allotment that an adjuster can give you and just say, here's $80,000, we'll write that off. But if you're saying I have $120,000 that I need for these, then they might ask you for some documentation. The other thing that a lot of us get frustrated with, but also want to have is something called inflation. And there's inflation guards now on policies where you see your price increase. But when your price increases, you have to understand why. And if it's because your dwelling A coverage, that's your home, is increasing, that means the material that it costs to build in your area is more expensive or has gone up in value. So your home, as it increases, is a good thing. Although we pay more out of pocket, it does kind of suck there. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure we have the right coverage. Most customers add what's called an additional replacement cost on their home. So if there is something like that and they didn't have enough, it usually covers 10, 20, 25, or even 50% additional replacement beyond what your coverage A was. So it's almost like a protection for yourself in case you didn't have enough coverage to replace the home in the event of a total loss. Okay, Mark, just tell me what endorsements I need. What am I looking for? Water backup, probably the number one. Service line, if you have an older home, if you have galvanized pipes under the ground, they're likely going to crack and break over time. If you're just worried if a contractor might drive over your grass and something might pop or crack under the ground, then also get that service line coverage. In most states, most often, it's about $75 a year to add, so it's not going to add a ton to your policy. Equipment breakdown, my fridge is older, my microwave has died twice. I have a deductible that didn't make it worth filing my microwave, but if there was an electrical storm or lightning hit my house and all of my appliance went out at once, then yes, it does make sense to have that equipment breakdown. Ordinance and law, that's something that a lot of people don't understand, but essentially it's the change of codes. So over time, the way to build a home changes. They realize, hey, if I run this pipe under here and over here, then it's going to freeze. But if I ran it over this and down here, that's the right way. And so they stamp that. That's the way you have to do the home. Because those change over time, there's an extra cost for somebody to change all of those pieces to make it fit the right codes for your standard. What did you say I have to take photos of? Keep proof of ownership. If you have photos, valuables, keep serial numbers if you have them, receipts if available. Just keep in mind there's collectibles are something you need to endorse or add on. There's articles, as they call them. There's actual valuable items. If I have a $50,000 ring or a watch that's $10,000, I might want to talk to my agent to make sure that's even covered, because there are limits to some of the higher valuable items that come with a standard home policy. Easy way to understand the maintenance: you should have the roof looked at every few years. You should have the basement looked over, whether it's you or someone coming in. You should check the siding to make sure there's no cracks or damage. You should check the windows, which is the caulking on the outside typically cracks. So if that needs to be replaced, that might be something to do. And then updates and renovations. You need to make sure if you're doing the kitchen, the basement, the roof, any additions, the solar, all those things need to be listed, or at least the agent needs to be aware of them to see if they even need to add it. Now, if you are doing improvements, if you're doing piping, if you're doing the heater, if you're doing the electrical, or more importantly, if you replace the roof, there's very large discounts tied to those. If you do those on your own, then make sure that you let the agent know, because that will save you money and also make sure that you're covered correctly. If you want to learn more about the specific coverages on a home policy, I've got a video here. If you're shopping for insurance, I'll put a link in the description below. If you're looking for just general discounts, there's another one for you. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.